Hi, everyone. Hey.
Hi. Hi, Kendra.
Hi, Bethany. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you? And hi,
I'm doing
everybody
good.
watching. Thank you for joining us on this cloudy Sunday. But it might not be cloudy where everybody is, right?
It's cloudy in greater Boston, I guess. Yeah, I have some clouds.
I guess I'm hoping there are people from like the Netherlands and Brazil and everywhere watching. So
Yeah, nice warm places. If you have sun, God bless you. That's great.
send us some.
Thank you for tuning in to the second edition of Showing Up. And yeah, we're going to have a great conversation today. What's Showing Up about, Bethany?
Showing up it's about showing up. It's friends, neighbors, activists talking about social justice and how we can all show up for our community. Everybody, there are so many levels of showing up in activism. Any level you want to participate in, we will have suggestions for you. We'll have information, conversations, art, and most importantly, action. So thank you for showing up with us.
Yeah. And today's episode is actually about a pretty broad but very important topic. Obviously, it is about activism. Um, and what do activists consider activism? What are actions of activism we could all take? What are different forms of activism? Yeah, there's a lot about activism. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about.
It's kind of like it's showing up 101.
Yes, yes, exactly.
It's kind of like I don't know, like, there's like a big, broad explanation of it, but I think any action that you take towards social justice is activism.
Definitely, yeah.
You think?
Yeah, Bethany, what have been your experiences with activism? Like, what's been your interactions with it throughout your life?
Well, as you
Mhm.
know, my mother is both my parents were very engaged, active activists. So we grew up picketing, striking. My dad was a labor union organizer, so we would show up for the picket lines, which is kind of like using us, though. It's like, look, little kids picketing, you have to give us our way. But anyway, we would participate on picket lines. We would, take days off of school to get on a bus and go from New York to Washington, D.C. to protest and demonstrate about so many things. We went to a protest for affirmative action, and we had, I don't know if you know this, but there are chants for every protest that you're on. So that one was affirmative action. Yes. Bucky, no. We marched against apartheid. We marched for LGBTQ rights. Back then it was really only G. And yeah, so it's kind of a lifelong. I tried to give it up when I
Mm.
spread my wings and flew. I was like, no more social justice. I don't care. I want beautiful designer clothing. And it lasted a little while. I got to be frivolous and pretend like I didn't see what was going on. But I think it's kind of like a Gremlins thing. Like you add injustice and it springs back up,
Mhm.
actually.
You
What about
couldn't. You
you?
couldn't. Yeah, I did not grow up in a family. I mean, I grew up in a family that obviously cared about stuff, but I wouldn't say they were like really dedicated to this. I kind of got into it end of high school, and then in college, I would just read the news and things would happen, and I'd be mad. Obviously, like I am very much I was born in the '90s, and like if you're also born in the '90s, you may know things haven't been great since then. Like we had the Spice Girls, and things just went downhill. So I think my first political action I went to was actually like protesting against the Iraq war because it just didn't
Oh,
make sense to me as a 12-year-old. Still doesn't make sense to me. But I remember my mom and I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and we like drove into the city and I like made a sign and everything. And then once we got there, the police were like, "Oh, okay, we gotta go. You gotta clear things out." Um, so yeah, that was like kind of my first brush with it, and I've been trying to like engage with it and help out where I can throughout, college and like now. So yeah, I hoping this show exposes people to really awesome activists in this area. And I'm hoping that the people who are on here get donations for their organizations and everything. I tried organizing. I am not a good organizer. I tried organizing specifically for a cafeteria workers union. It's very hard work. I do not have the constitution for it myself. So I'm like, if I could support organizers, I totally will. I just don't like talking to that many people at once, which it's just a personal thing. I try to support where I can.
That's awesome because it is super hard work, and there is just like what you're saying is a perfect example of you can support on a myriad of levels, and you can take action on so many levels. So if organizing is not for you, I love that you're there supporting organizers. I've also heard people say, "Oh, it's so hard to remember, what to boycott, what not to boycott," or "I can't not use Amazon. I need everything from Amazon." But if that's the case, then find another place to take action. And it could be as small as choosing one coffee shop over another coffee shop because one coffee shop is active in social justice. Those tiny actions and tiny moments are activism. So I hope that's what I hope people take away from the show is that no one is expecting every single person to show up at a protest with a bullhorn and know all of the chants by heart. Like
there's a lot of chants.
Yeah, so many chants. You can choose the level of activism that is comfortable for you, and hopefully the joy that you feel making these small actions helps you grow your activist life. But just really the smallest thing, like we talked about last episode, if you hear that a brand doesn't support all families and all marriages, then you can choose not to buy that brand. And I don't want to hear it. "Oh my God, but the sandwich is so crispy, crunchy." Then
Are you subtweeting certain Chick-fil-A right now? You could make the sandwich like all you do is like soak it in pickle brine. I think like pickle juice or something. I think that's basically it. So you can make it.
You can go online and find it, right? Like, listen, my mother is Puerto Rican, right? So the Goya boycott was devastating. Like, I don't even think I can cook food anymore without Goya products. So, but I went online. There's a whole community. There's a Boricua chefs on Facebook, and everybody just got together and was like, "Okay, we're going to make this adobo on our own." And everybody posted recipes for it. So if I can get off the Goya, then you can get off something too. When you leave today, find out what you can get off.
Definitely. Yeah. And another thing, I think another big aspect of it is like if you know people who are organizing, or like if you have close friends who like maybe they just need like a meal, or like, if you have a friend who's going through a problem, supporting your friends and the people around you in your community. Maybe you have a friend who's an organizer who like wants to like just like complain about someone that they're organizing with but doesn't want to get out. Like if you could just listen to your friend and then not talk about that person to anyone else, that is also supporting your community. That's supporting activists like that, right? That's showing up like so like activism could be like making meals or supporting working mothers if like they have a kid that needs babysitting. It doesn't have to be these big grand actions like being at every protest. That's kind of the like spicy nice version, but or like the like, oh, like I'm at a protest version, but there's like lots and lots and lots more work beyond that. So
here's an example. I was in like a play group with my son when he was like 2 years old, and there was a mom and a boy from Morocco. His name was his name was Rian.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of families from Ireland. There was a boy named Kian, and there was another boy named Ryan. And so the teacher, she would say, you know, she goes around and sings, hello, Nico, hello, everybody. And she'd go, I'm sorry, I just don't know how to say it. I'm going to say Ryan.
Ooh.
And she would say the boy's name, Rian, she'd say Ryan. And so when, you know, she did it a couple of times, and then when everybody was playing, you know, there's like, you have lunch and then you break for play, and then some of the grown-ups talk to each other for a little bit before we go home. And so I just went up to her and I said, I noticed that when you come to Rian, you say his name Ryan. She goes, I know, I just can't say it. It's just so hard. And, you know, I'm like, sure, but the Irish boy, the boy from Ireland, his name is Kian. So if you could say Kian, you could just
Rian.
put an R there and say Rian. It really is just getting out of your head and not seeing that as too foreign for you to participate. And she was like blown away, happy, but like, I think she was slightly embarrassed because it was that easy. And a couple of other moms said, wow, that's so brave that you said something, but it isn't brave. It's not brave. It's what we should all be doing for each other. And I do believe if you are of the mind that that action is brave, then activism seems hard. But it isn't not brave. You'd correct somebody saying your name the right way. If you know someone's name, there's someone is pronouncing their name wrong, you can help them say it correct. And you can make it, you can show them the way that they can say it. So that's activism. It's not bravery, it's just showing up.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Bethany. All right, yeah. So to talk more about activism, we have a fantastic panel coming up. We are going to be talking to three activists, and I guess we could bring them on now, right? Come on down, activists, come on down. Yeah. All right. So we have Carolyn Chu from the Asian American Resource Workshop, Avi Nguyen, also from the Asian American Workshop, and Dorothea Manuela. So we are going to be asking everyone here questions about activism, like what drew them to activism, et cetera, et cetera. But first, I want to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves a little bit. And Carolyn, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. My name's Carolyn, as you said. I work at the Asian American Resource Workshop. So we're a Pan-Asian organizing space, and we mostly organize young adults, and we organize around issues of displacement in the Asian American community. So for us, that really means gentrification, deportation, criminalization, and environmental and climate issues. So, and we really believe in the power of young people and building folks organizing skills for the long haul and building folks structural analysis. So yeah, that's what we do. And I live in Dorchester, and I'm also involved with other neighborhood gentrification organizing.
Awesome. That's great. Avi, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Avi, he, him pronouns. It's really sweet that I get to be associated with AARW because technically I'm not an employee. My main association is popping in at Carolyn's house from time to time for no reason. But it's, yeah, I grew up in Dorchester as well. I've been associated with AARW for a long while. I started with the Sticky Rice Project, which is this education group, and we ran workshops around racial education. The one I was associated with was fighting anti-Black racism and casteism. I've also been associated with the City School, which is really this amazing organization that's been pushing for youth leaders since the beginning. I started when I was 8th grade, so my organizing history has been like ever since like I could really remember. And yeah, and right now I go to Boston University. But most of my work I do has always been in Dorchester because like that's my home and that's where I want all my work to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last but not least, Dorothea.
Hello everybody. It's great to be here. And I love, the work that you're doing. Thank you very much. My name is Rotea Manuela Antigua, and I identify in that way. As long as racism exists and people can judge and think that you come from, so I will always keep doing it. So I'm a long time social change and social justice warrior. I could be the grandmother of a few of you and the mother of two. So I've been doing a lot of work in the labor movement. I worked in the labor movement for quite some time. My activism began when I wanted to, help everyone and thought that nursing was the race. And then I discovered that, I discovered how racism works in terms of, denying human rights, the human rights and basic human needs of people. So I've worked at the Haymarket People's Foundation. I've worked in District 65, District 40. And I've worked with a couple of people in the organizations that Avi's from. And that's it. I've been around for a very long time. So I work specifically on I focus on racism and anti-racism as part of the social change and social justice work that I do. And the list is too long, so I'll quit there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple of questions. We'll give each panelist a few minutes to answer, although I know that everybody could go on for hours and hours, but just talk a little bit for a few minutes about the next couple of questions. So let's start with Carolyn. What is activism meant to you throughout your experience as an activist? Meaning, you come to it one way. Does it evolve over time? Does the activist that you were when you began look different than the activist you are today?
Yeah. I think actually to what Avi said, I think so, we sometimes, and I think you all talked about this a little bit, sometimes we make it about our jobs and where we work and what we do, right? But actually, we're all members of so many communities. And so how do we show up as people, as members? And, I'm lucky enough to have a job where I get to do this work, full time and get paid for it. But to me, it's really been about community organizing and building people power, working with other people, whether that's being on the streets or, testifying at city council or at the state house, or doing an art event, that highlights an issue. How do we really highlight both the issues we see in our communities, but also the structural solutions that we need, in terms of policy and culture change and all of that, that we want to see, right? Whether it's, around deportation or gentrification or any of the issues. But yeah, I mean, I'm 30 now. I definitely, I came up through running youth programming and then really loved it and loved working with children, but really wanted to understand what it looked like to organize for a world where the kinds of challenges we saw in the program and in the neighborhood, that the conditions look different and that folks were able to thrive. And so it's been really fun and exciting to be building with lots of folks and building that structural change.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And Avi, do you want to tell us what activism has meant to you throughout your experience with activism?
Yeah, it's just like Carolyn was saying. I think that people think of activism sometimes in a very narrow mindset where it's these rallies and these protests. But as y'all were discussing earlier, activism is about being there for each other. I really appreciate Kendra saying that people should just listen and hear what people have to say, because literally one of my favorite things is to just hop into a group FaceTime call and gossip about what's going on in the community. And honestly, that's a form of activism. I always thought that activism was about yeah. It's it was about being a celebration of being alive, we are fighting for the right to be happy and to exist as who we are. And every day, like activism for me is just like about being joyful and like continuing that like we have like this need to be comfortable with who we are and how we exist as ourselves. We used to do this thing where we talked about like giving up privilege, and I always like push back against that. I'm like, I don't think it's about giving up anything. It's about how do we be more of ourselves? How do we be more of a community? And so for me, activism has always been about people, because at the end of the day, that's all we have. So
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, and I love the idea of gossiping and shit talking as praxis. I think that's very great.
It is. Dorotea, how does your what is full disclosure? Can I tell, Dorotea?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
And of course,
this is my mother. This is my mommy who raised me as an activist. So, in your own words, what is activism meant to you throughout your experience?
Well, activism to me is being actively organizing to change, society and those ills that we, experience. One of the ways that I define activism is not standing by, action. You must organize. The only way to make any changes is to reflect on what are the issues that you see, in your community or that you've experienced. I've experienced racism, sexism, and a combination thereof. And when I realized that there is no such thing as being quiet and keeping still, and that's the way it is, is that one day they will come for you too. Like being quiet, not stirring the waters, not creating any issues, and just standing by, it doesn't work. So for me, action is the way. Action. You have to stand up. You have to be heard. You have to be seen. You share with other people. Try to help and inspire other people to stand up, because sometimes people are shy and they're not able to, they're not able to express themselves verbally. But you try to help people use their power in other ways. One of the things that I did actively, that I promised myself that if I ever had children, if the world continued the way it was, that we were going to all work together. And as Bethany can tell you, I used to take, I have 3 children. I used to have one carried in the sack in the front, one in the back, like in a backpack baby. And Bethany was in a stroller. And one of the ways that I helped them and helped me to express activism was that the United States flag and that pledge states that this is freedom for all. And, I'm not going to do the whole thing. You know the words. My children are not, I said, they are not going to pledge allegiance to a flag that does not represent, does not defend, does not reflect our needs, but instead oppresses us through the very effective tool of racism, so that people internalize racism and we keep, como se dice, divided. So when my children refused to pledge allegiance to the flag, and they told them that, they said that they're going to call their mother, and they try to explain to them that you don't want my mother here, that if I come up, I'm going to tell them that I'm teaching them that. I felt that the job of the teachers was to do the ABC 1, 2, 3. That's it. We teach the rest of it. So when I did come up, I think that they learned very quickly. They probably learned a lesson, but they weren't going to express it, was that flag does not represent us. Racism, oppression, those are the illnesses that we're living and being oppressed by. And as long as that's what's going on, we do not pledge to that flag. Now, I can't tell you how they felt about it after all of that, because one of the things that they have suggested, and when I say, I mean the principal, the teachers, could they at least stand up? And I said, did you hear what I said? No. So activism is standing up. Activism is not judging other people that don't practice the same way that I do or that other people do. It's working with people, going to where they're at, and just everything that we have seen so far, movements have all been strengthened by people joining forces together. And my focus is racism and anti-racism, because that covers pretty much, like I said, the illnesses, that we have, social illnesses that we, and we have fun. Humor has helped me, keep some questions about my sanity, but I think I'm sane. But the humor has helped me to maintain, myself strong, and to help other people not feel burnt out, or feel, like down, that we can't win. Yes, we can, and we will.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. That was
Does that
really
silence me?
awesome hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
No, and I believe that. No, I said, does the silence mean that I should go on? No, I'm only kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, of
No,
course.
I just believe that activism has to be about unity. Unity.
Yeah, don't worry. We have lots of questions for everyone. Yeah, so next question is, and let's start with Avi with this one. How does your experience or your identity or identities inform your activism?
Okay, this one's really hard because I was like, who am I? And I was like, it's like, yeah, it's really weird. So I grew up, the first thing like I always think about myself is like who raised me. And like for me, that was like mainly my mom. And I also grew up with like a little sister. And then one thing like I've always noticed about like activism is like the way they like, whenever like anyone like makes a statement about men, they always qualify it in front of me. So they'll be like, like men are like so bad, but like straight men. And I'm like, no, it's like men period are just bad. And like I've noticed that like one of the things that like I've learned about activism is that your identities do not exist in like the singular vacuum. Like you are like a kaleidoscope of things. And so I always think about that whenever I do my activism, like how does each like every part of myself, and it's even like small things like I like have to take the T everywhere because I don't have a car. And my first like a form of activism was like creating a Twitter account where I like cyberbullied the MBTA, and to this day like I still like am proud of it, even though like it probably won't end up on my resume. But the point is like that like everything you do and everything that like is like a part of you that like you experience, like that is activism. Like that's who you are. And it's things like sometimes it's things you have to check, and sometimes it's things you need liberation from. But at the end of the day, you have to accept like every piece of yourself. And if you're not honest with your identity, you can't be honest with your activism. So that's how I like to look at it.
That is excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Co-signing cyberbullying the MBTA. That is so important in this day and age. Dorothea, do you want to answer next?
Yes. What was the question again?
The question is, how does your experience or your identity
say that again, please?
From your activism?
Well, I since a child, I think my being a female child, an African descent, Latina, it began there. I always wanted to play with the boys because they seem more powerful than being a girl playing with dolls. So I started feeling like, well, you know what? I don't really like doing this doll playing thing. So I came up with a game that it didn't become popular, and I really got in trouble with my mother. I said, let's play monster. So I took and I ripped the dolls' heads of everybody that was playing with the dolls, right? Now, for me, that was liberating. And it also was an act of activism because I felt trapped playing mommy, baby dolly, doing, just repeating things that I saw that I didn't like. So I learned that while I felt liberated, the feeling of, look, we're not going to play this anymore. At the same time, I got in trouble because my mother, was very upset with me because now she was going to have to buy all these newer dolls. But there was that. And she also felt embarrassed, come from a culture that sometimes the parents feel shame that, because of the children's behavior or the family members. And I was trying to help my mother understand that I really didn't like playing with dolls. And she kept insisting when we visited, with her friends, the children and the girls, we had to play dolls. So I learned one big lesson that has served me very well today, that doing the right thing isn't always easy, and it isn't always, trouble-free. But I think that the feeling that you get of feeling power definitely worked. Now for my race, I applied for a job on the telephone, and I guess they didn't hear what some people think I have an accent, but I don't hear it. But on the phone, I almost had the job. But when I appeared, they asked me what I was doing. It was for a private clinic, doctor's office. I came from the medical field originally, and I told them, and then I got this strange look. So I was almost hired on the phone, but now that I'm present, the person that I was going to replace, suddenly she's not leaving. So that was another lesson. But I felt that since I wasn't going to get the job and there was obvious racism, that I told them a few things that are not necessary to repeat. But I walked out, I walked out jobless, but I felt powerful that I stood up and that I took that action. To this day, and I'm very proud of my children because I saw them do their first action of activism when they did refuse to pledge allegiance to that flag. To this day, I am so proud of those activist people. And that's how it informs. That's an experience that I realized that that we have to work, because no matter who, all of this impacts all of us. We're working people, it impacts us, whether it's a direct aggression or not. Mm-hmm. And I talk loud, and I'm not mad, I'm just passionate.
All right, and Carolyn?
Yeah, really resonate with what both folks said around the question. I think, I'm thinking about this particularly in this moment where we're kind of talking about anti-Asian violence. We're talking about violence against Asian women. And yeah, I think that, right, we know that none of this is new. We know that we're up against a lot when we think about white supremacy, heteropatriarchy, these systems. And I think this moment, right, really highlights the intersection of race and gender. And so, yeah, I think to what Avi and Dorothea both said, right, that this moment is just another place where, like in our daily lives, walking down the street, right, we see these, the intersections of race, gender, class, and immigration. And so while we know these systems aren't new, I think these moments give us a chance to really come together around what the real structural enemy is, right? And it's a system. We know that as Asian folks, as we have work to do to build with other folks of color. We have work to do within our own communities, and we know that we're all up against the same systems. And so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for us to all build together at the intersection and be specific about all of our experiences and understand that they're part of this broader system that we have to break down so that we can, thrive and kind of live the way folks are describing we hope to be able to change the world to be.
Thank you so much. So we have just a few more minutes, and we could talk to you all for hours and hours and hours and hours. Like, I feel like this could be a Netflix series.
It'd be one of the better ones. It would, if this was released as a Netflix original, it'd be way better than the last season of Sabrina. So, yeah.
So for the final question for everyone, what would you like viewers at home today to take away with them from this episode and this panel? Something they can do, or something they can consider, or something to think about, or some action they can take. Like, what do you hope viewers at home come away with today? And we can start with Carolyn.
Great. Well, one specific thing kind of on this moment of anti-Asian violence we've been talking about is there's a link to donate to a fund that AARW, along with a bunch of other Asian organizations in Massachusetts, created to provide cash assistance to undocumented Asian families who are so often left out of the conversation, like Black undocumented folks, like so many of our people. And so that's one, immediate opportunity that we feel like is really talking about all the kinds of violence, structural violence our people experience under white supremacy. And then I think, in addition, more broadly, I just say, I think as we've been talking about today, right, like there are so many things we can do in our own day-to-day lives. And I think that's so important. And I think what else is important, and I would push everyone to do, is go from there, whatever that thing is you want to do. How do you find other people, right? Because ultimately we want to create organizing and we want to create a movement for change. And so wherever your little lane is, how can you connect with someone else, a group of people, other folks? Because as we've said, right, people power is all we have. So just pushing yourself to take that one more step and really building with other people around whatever small or big efforts you have capacity to take on.
Thank you. That's such valuable, important information. Are you taking notes, viewers? You should be. This is a beautiful opportunity we have here. Avi, what do you say? What would you like the audience at home to take away from this moment now?
Seconding what Carolyn said, like about like putting monetary needs and physical needs and also emotional needs for people. One thing that I've been like really advocating for, and also like someone who's like the better half of like my social activism platonically, but like still my better half. One thing we've been advocating for is actually like funding ring lights for us, because it's really hard sometimes like appearing on like panels like this, and I have to like try to fix a lighting situation. I was like, I could be like curing racism right now, but I have to figure out the lighting situation. But that's one thing that we could do that I could ask the audience for. But other like more specific demands that I have, and sorry, that was a bad.
He's the real comedian of this show today.
That was a bad inside joke. We can move on. I don't know how to strike that from the record, but
no, I think keep it. Avi, you can get Avi a ring light. They're not like wild. Jeff Bezos could give every American a ring light. That's fine.
I am a huge proponent of that, because one thing we talk about is how much we hate Zoom, but one activist told me like, this is not new for disabled folks. Online activism is something that we are catching up on. So it's something that, yes, it's like troublesome for us, but like it shouldn't be like, this should be like the norm. We should have already had like structures in place where we could have done this earlier to include folks that weren't available before. And then one thing, like talking about like the increase in like Asian violence, I wanted to talk like more specifically about the ask that a lot of folks have been pushing for. And one of the asks is that we report more crimes or that we increase policing. And this is something that like I would like be very careful of. Asian violence is not new. Asian violence by the police is especially not new. We see that with immigration deportations. We see that with people being evicted from their houses. And so the reason why like crimes may be underreported or they're reported with like specific areas is because like we have polarized race groups in this way. We have set it up so that we're constantly like in friction with each other. We do not have the space or the resources to be able to deal with these kinds of issues like face to face or like through a community basis. So when I say like people should be careful about increasing like the need for reporting, I also ask like, do you care about non-documented folks? And maybe that's the reason why they're not approaching this topic or not being able to find help for this need. So that would be like a huge takeaway, is that when you ask for something, like please consider like the implications, and also donate to the organizations Carolyn listed. I know that Asian Coalition Mass just had a rally called March for Asian Futures, and it was absolutely amazing. It was all youth run. I really appreciated, Bethany, what you said earlier about feeling like you were kind of like a tool when you were like being put on the picket fence by your parents. Because as a youth organizer, I started in 8th grade. I felt like I was a prop sometimes. I have a lot of pictures with a lot of politicians, and there's a reason why. But I mean, it's nice for like a resume stuff, like on a resume standpoint. But like, I was like, I know that like sometimes like it wasn't, when you think about like youth organizing and you want to encourage that, you want youth to organize in a way that they actually take responsibility and they actually don't just organize with youth. I think youth, they like a lot of people seem like, oh, because you're a youth, you only can work with youth. Like that's not the case. Like we want to be able to create an impact, and we can't create an impact if we're pigeonholed into this one role where we only work within ourselves. Like that isolates us. So yeah, that was a lot of ass, but number one is the ring light thing. I will say that.
And thank you, Abby. And Dorothea, aka Mommy, what do you hope what do you hope that the viewers at home, you know, come away with today after this panel? What would you like them to do or consider or to think about?
Well, I would like for people to reflect. I would like people to reflect and think about some of the history that they know. Many activists know more of the true and the real, the real history of this country. Like, for instance, one of the things that goes on that's very well organized is this language, you know, that's used that you know, what the hell does it mean? What is, this is a country of immigrants. What does that mean? This country has seen different waves of different immigrants, and there's always been an anti-immigrant sentiment. For instance, in 1882, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act. Then in 1942, it was the Japanese internment at the camps. Now we're facing, it's the same, tactic over and over again. But the strategy is one that that they stole, the oppressors have stole the narrative. What we know is that immigrants, regardless of when they came, however they got here, have always contributed to the economy of this country. So it's just another form of sophisticated slavery. And within the working class, there is a caste system. Right now, we're seeing all these horrible pictures of people and children living in cages at the border. But what of the Japanese internment camps? Was that not the same type of scene? Then we have the racism against African descent people. That is always taking a back burner to all the different and new things that come. The only illegal immigrants that have ever existed, and this has to be in a history book at some point, and I'm definitely fighting for it, are those people that came from Europe, fleeing persecution. Those are the illegal immigrants. They came, committed genocide, stole, you know, the story of the indigenous peoples of the United States of North America, because there are indigenous people still alive in Central and South America. However, then they put them in the reservations, right? So is this not the same tactic of the strategy of divide and conquer? It continues. I would like people to reflect, to look at some of the things that I've said, but not because I said them, because they exist. And think about how are we going to understand that we are the working people and the production. We produce the wealth of this country, but we are subject continuously to divisions. We have internalized the racism. We have internalized all judgment and prejudice, and that has to stop. And the only way to do that is to unite and talk to each other in small groups. Just talk to each other and not be afraid of words. You know, it's like a boogeyman word, oh, socialism, capitalism, imperialism. All of those are economic systems. But right now, we need to join together. We need to unite. Just simple conversations and start acting, standing up. It's good to march. It's good to rally. But that has to be part of a bigger, more organized plan. And we have to learn, what is the meaning? What is systemic racism? That's the question that I want to leave everybody with, because we talk about that a lot. Just like we mention a lot the inequities, you know, of certain communities. How many generations will we hear that? Those numbers are people. Come out and meet the people, talk to them, live with them. We impact each other. I'm African descent. There are Asian people, there are Latino people, there are different people that are all members of the same tribe, working class. And we are creating this wealth, and we have to unite. We have a lot of ignorance that we have to bring light to. So let's start talking to each other and learning about each other. And the intergenerational, issue that sometimes is a gap, the gap doesn't have to exist, because what we're doing is continuing that struggle, is continuing to build on that foundation and that movement for liberation in this whole, democracy, So I would say reflect on everything that we hear, we read, and stop trying to not look like or seem like a racist by not participating. We need to be able to, the white people, it's impossible for them to have been products of this society and not have racist practices. So we have to stop being afraid and just understand that we have to unite in order to move forward, to strengthen this movement, that the foundation was laid out even before I was born, as old as I am, and keep moving forward and not let any. I learned that you can use this medium that we're on now to follow up on organizing. And what the current generation can learn is that we have to start organizing in person so that we could feel the people, and we can just keep fighting to come together, because I feel that we have proven over years that we can win, we can achieve some of our goals, but we're not very good at maintaining. And that there are 80 million people waiting out there to get us. No, I don't need to put it quite like that. But no, seriously, there are some really ugly stuff that's happening. We were able to get rid of Jim Crow laws on the books, but we haven't been able to get rid of the actual actions. So we have to fight back with our actions, stand up, whatever it is. We don't have to stand on a corner and talk or speak at a podium. We could just unite and talk about it and work with our own communities, but not our own communities being what ethnic or whatever racial group we're from. Our communities, the people.
Thank you, mommy. That's how I grew up, listening to that. She didn't read us any books. She would just do that. She would make us arroz con pollo and then just do that the whole time. So if you want to read me a kid's book, I'm down. Thank you, mommy. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, everyone on this panel. This has been really excellent. Yeah, this has been really excellent. We would love this panel to keep going, but unfortunately we have to move on to our musical guest. Yes, and I'm gonna make that a hashtag on Twitter, get Avi a ring light. But as everyone here is thinking about all the stuff that our activists here today on the panel have said, and turning it over in their brains, think about ways to connect with their communities, we're going to have a brief little musical guest break, and for some fun, just lightening things up. So we'd love to introduce to the virtual stage TJ Reynolds. He is an art teacher, freestylist, musical artist, and he also has a show here on Too Much Bread Studios called Cross Pollination. Yeah. So we would like to welcome TJ Reynolds right now. Yeah.
Hey, what's up? This is TJ Reynolds. I'm with my good buddy Todd Brunel, and we're going to bring you some live loopy music from the Soup Kitchen. Let's do this. From the food bank. soul soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Battling the evil, out the evil men. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Battling the evil out, yo. All day, all night till dawn, deciphering right from wrong on the tightest song. It's where I belong. No, they cannot stump us. When we're following the moral compass and not just the hunches, it's easy to be sleazy if I don't let my conscience lead me. But it's not enough to lead only my own life. Too many others have never been shown right on a home flight to find my center. Cause I've been a little lost, cost, bearing a bigger cross, tripping off. You say it pretty, what you standing for? What they taking, you should be demanding more. That's exactly why I'm on the mission to truly touch souls, goes beyond religion. So I'm always on my grind like vultures. Wake up, all of my soul soldiers. You soul soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. The evil, out the evil men. You soul soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Watch you go and play the net. Come on. Soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Battling the evil, out the evil men. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Robbing for the hood, got the stakes even in. We're soul soldiers, making you believe again. Battling the evil out.
Wow, awesome. That was great.
That was awesome, really TJ. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I love him getting down on the floor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love like saxophones, any horns. I love horns. Good job. Yeah, that was great. We all need a little bit of horn action in our lives.
It sounds like you keep saying we all need a little bit of porn action in our life.
Oh, sorry. I did not mean that.
No judgment. No judgment.
That's a different episode of Showing Up where we talk about the porn.
Care workers. We talked about care workers.
That's true. And then there are some people who also provide visual entertainment. It's a nice intersection.
Horns. Loving the horns. That was excellent.
Yeah, that was really good. So now it is time for our correspondent check-in. So we have Sarah giving a little of an excerpt from a relevant book for us to listen to today.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, sorry.
I just wasn't sure when it was starting.
No,
you weren't supposed to see all this.
So yeah, I'll take you out.
Hold on.
It's all good. That's all right.
How are you?
That was awesome.
It turns out I uploaded the wrong video. So just talk for just a second, and I'll upload the right video.
Okay. Yeah,
I love you get the peek behind the curtain.
Just
like totally
just a little
Wizard
bit
of
behind the
Oz
curtain.
moment.
It's what it is.
This is like the director's cut of Showing Up, or like the director commentary in the background. That's what this is.
People want to always see what's going on backstage, right? I think so. Don't you? I mean,
I'm the type of person that loves that, but I am a nerd, but like I love that sort of thing.
Do you have is there a line that you won't cross? Like, for example, will you? I love seeing the behind the scenes. Unless I was so invested in the world they created that I need to keep believing it's real, then I can't watch the behind the scenes. Like I can't see the green screen of Star Trek Discovery. I can't watch the behind the scenes because I need to believe in all of it.
I think the more invested I am in some media, the more I want to know exactly how they made it. I'm kind of the opposite. Like I've definitely had like hyperfixations with some forms of media. Like, how did they write each episode? Like how did they do this or that? Matt Fear. Oh, it's ready.
I got the right video now.
Yeah.
So we're all good.
Hell yeah.
I really wanted to
Let's
dive
get
into hyperfixations, but we'll text about it.
yeah. Let's get a thank you, Matt Fear, in the chat, and let's play this video.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brilliant Excerpts by me, your friendly neighborhood Sarah Duncan. Today, we have an excerpt from a book called The Next American Revolution, Sustainable Activism for the 21st Century, written by Grace Lee Boggs with Scott Kurashige. It's an updated and expanded edition, and it was written in, I believe, 2012. So when I do the reading, I encourage you to remember that some of what is mentioned is around Barack Obama, Occupy, things like that, that, as we know, are of course connected to where we are now and the movements that we're in, and is not technically happening right now, right? So if you're like, that happened a minute ago, you're right, it did. It's an older book. Okay. A bit about it, though. It was published by the University of California Press, and Grace Lee Boggs, you may have heard of her, you may not have heard of her. Either way, ta-da! She is the recipient of many human rights and lifetime achievement awards, and Grace Lee Boggs is an activist, or was, I should say, I believe she has since passed on, was an activist, writer, and speaker. She was celebrated in the National Women's Hall of Fame, and Boggs is the co-author with James Boggs of another book called Revolution and Evolution in the 20th Century, and the author of Living for Change, an autobiography. Grace Lee Boggs is the daughter of Chinese immigrants, and when this book was published, she was 95 years old. So, very, very impressive person. Very impressive person. And she had a lot to say about what activism is and what we need. I will be reading from the chapter, These Are the Times to Grow Our Souls. And it's on page 46, where she starts with transformational organizing. All right. The older I grow, the more I realize how lucky I am to have lived so long and been part of so many historic changes. When I became a radical nearly 70 years ago, we ran the risk of seeming ridiculous, as Che Guevara put it, if we thought love had anything to do with revolution. Being revolutionary meant being tough as nails, committed to agitating and mobilizing angry and oppressed masses to overthrow the government and seize state power by any means necessary in order to reconstruct society from the top down. In the past 50 years, this top-down view of revolution has been discredited by the demise of the Soviet Union. At the same time, our approach to revolution has been humanized by the modern women's movement, which informs us that the political is personal, the ecological movement, which emphasizes loving Mother Earth and the places where we live, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for a radical revolution in our values and his concept of beloved community. In the past 15 years, tens of thousands of very diverse community groups have sprung up all over the world to resist the commodifying by global corporations of our relationships to one another. On January 1st, 1994, the day NAFTA took effect, the Zapatistas dramatized this new movement by first taking over 6 Mexican cities militarily and then retiring to Chiapas and other indigenous communities to engage the people at the grassroots in nonviolent struggles to create new forms of participatory democracy. Nearly 6 years later, in the November 1999 Battle of Seattle, 50,000 members of labor, women, youth, and peace groups closed down the World Trade Organization to inform the world that the time had come to create alternatives to corporate globalization. In 2001, a series of Another World is Possible World Social Forums began in Porto Alegre, Brazil, to help movement activists around the world recognize that it is futile to keep calling on elected officials to create a more just, caring, and sustainable world. We ourselves must begin practicing in the social realm the capacity to care for each other, to share the food, skills, time, and ideas that up to now most of us have limited to our most cherished personal relationships. As part and parcel of this new approach to revolution, the first United States Social Forum was held in Atlanta, Georgia in 2007. And the second inspired over 18,000 activists to convene in Detroit in June 2010. Normally, it would take decades for a people to transform themselves from the hyper-individualist, hyper-materialist, damaged human beings that Americans in all walks of life are today to the loving, caring people we need in the deepening crisis. But these are not normal times. If we don't speed up this transformation, the likelihood is that, armed with AK-47s, we will soon be at each other's throats. Note that this was written about 10 years ago. That is why linking love and revolution is an idea whose time has come. We urgently need to bring to our communities the limitless capacity to love, serve, and create for and with each other. We urgently need to bring the neighbor back into our hoods, not only in cities, but also in our suburbs, our gated communities on Main Street and Wall Street, and on Ivy League campuses. We are in the midst of a process that is nothing short of reinventing revolution. For much of the 20th century, the theory and practice of revolution have been dominated by overarching ideologies, purist paradigms, and absolutist views of a static paradise. Arguments over which class, race, or gender was the main revolutionary social force, and binary oppositions between left and right. Big victories have been prioritized over small collaborative actions that build community and neighborhoods. The end has been valued over the means. We rarely stop to wonder how much this view of revolution reflected the capitalist culture that was dehumanizing us. Now, in the light of our historical experiences, and thanks especially to the indigenous cultures that the Zapatistas have revealed to us, we are beginning to understand that the world is always being made and never finished, that activism can be the journey rather than the arrival, that struggle doesn't always have to be confrontational, but can take the form of reaching out to find common cause with the many others in our society who are also seeking ways out from alienation, isolation, privatization, and dehumanization by corporate globalization. This is the kind of transformational organizing we need in this period. Instead of putting our organizational energies into begging Ford and General Motors to stay in Detroit, or begging the government to keep them afloat so that they continue to exploit us, we need to go beyond traditional capitalism. Creating new forms of community-based institutions will give us ownership and control over the way we make our living, while helping us to ensure that the well-being of our community and the environment is part of the bottom line. This kind of organizing takes a lot of patience, because changing people and people changing themselves requires time. Because it usually involves only small groups of people, it lacks the drama and visibility of angry masses making demands on the power structure. So it doesn't seem practical to those who think of change only in terms of quick fixes, huge masses, and charismatic leaders. The rest of it is very good, but I will stop there. She goes on to talk about quantum physics and activism, which is pretty cool. So I really recommend the book. And if you want the excerpt, let us know and I'll scan some pages and get them to you. Thanks so much.
Woo, that was awesome.
Sarah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
I know
Everyone
she
put.
I know she
Sorry, I was-
pre-recorded that, but I hope that she's watching and she hears us say thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah. Everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for doing that. That was really awesome. So yeah, now we're going to have a little bit of kind of some stuff from our musical
Yes, we're gonna bring back TJ.
Yeah.
TJ, that was
Hi.
Hey,
thank you for that.
and thanks for having me on.
I hear that you're gonna do something fun and interactive.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping people will put suggestions, and it could be anything. If it be, in the chat related to the show, unrelated or whatever. And I'm just gonna try to do a little, just freestyle for a couple of minutes and kind of just be in the moment with people. So.
Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. So did you hear? Put your suggestions in the chat. Fill it up.
Word, phrase, anything, yeah.
Word, phrase, something from the show, something not from the show. Fill up that chat. And in the meantime, while you're typing away, we have a few call to actions for you, things that you can do today after the show.
Yeah. So, and we could all talk about this. So obviously there are a lot of great calls to action that the panel said. Some organizations that they mentioned are the Asian American Resource Workshop, also called the AARW. I think through there they have a fund for undocumented people and a GoFundMe. Other important groups to donate to or become involved in any way possible. If you don't have money, you could give time. If you don't have time, you could give money, et cetera, is Asian Coalition Massachusetts. It is, I think actually Matt could probably put it in the chat. It's AZN Coalition MA on Insta. That's a youth-run coalition of mainly Asian American and Pacific Island folks. They have a GoFundMe for Asian Futures, funds and a fund for supporting these organizers and their work. They also had a rally yesterday that I believe is on their Instagram. Apparently it went really well, which is awesome. There's also For the People on Instagram called FTP Boston. For FTP for people, it doesn't stand for anything else. That is a youth-run coalition of Black and Brown organizers. They have a mutual aid fund for low-income marginalized folks in Boston. And then the Asian Community Emergency Relief Fund. That is a COVID relief fund, which is cash assistance to Asian folks who are not eligible for benefits, such as undocumented people. So it's a lot of funds.
But again, you do what you can. Donate to one. Yeah. There's, and also Google, there's so many organizations that you can donate to. These are immediate. You can do this right now. You can click on the links in the chat. So get started on your activism career. Yay. And TJ, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say it. And again, if your STIMI check hasn't come in yet, then if you don't have money, then you also donate time, or there's a lot of probably mutual aid, even dropping off, food or diapers or whatever to some people. They probably have stuff like that. So yeah,
definitely call and find out what people need.
Yeah.
TJ, we have a suggestion right away, and it, I love that it reflects today's episode. Picket line.
Picket line. All right. So let me get a little beat going.
Oh.
All right. Can you hear the beat?
Yeah.
All right. Yo. I look to the sky. It's a sign. Maybe I should be up in the picket line, because even when it's raining, it's still time to stand with your brethren. Then again, if you understand, it's a little medicine. I'm looking at your chat suggestions. They're all over. I'ma start taking some. Like you feel it through my veins, cumbersome, like a cummerbund, really tight. And I might just explode like Bruce Banner in the night with the mic. And I won't sulk, but I might be the Incredible Hulk and let it out. Never have it like a lump in my throat, because these the words that you cannot choke. Oh yes, because people hear it and it scares them. But you know, we got to have some awareness that we're raising, but not just that. We got to have some fun. So come right back, open your wallet, even if it's not so fat. Just a fraction will make a difference. Fact. Yes, and here we go, because I'm gonna have to understand it's a miracle, man. Am I too successful? But I didn't get a stimmy check. Like, oh no, what the heck is going on? To the break of dawn, you can still donate at the thing that's on the bottom of the screen at TJ Reynolds. Here we go again, because the dog's out the kennels, and you know, yeah, you've been warned. But I'ma play it like Todd Brunel with the horn and come through weather the storm, because you know we're gonna get it like it's a free store. We know we got more, but guess what? You know that we abhor all the people that still hold the mindset. White supremacy, man, that times went. Yeah, because we a coalition. I know that, yo, the flow is glistening. Yo, will listen and hit the point, because I'm gonna have to anoint it. It goes into your ear. You know, we know. Ha, feel it in my veins like Taino. That is my heritage on my mother's side, just like Bethany Van Delft. Yeah, you know it's right, because we gonna break it down, because everybody knows just the sound. Because if you trace back Taino far enough, you go back to Asia. Don't you know that's so tough? Yeah, you got to get it straight, like when we going across the Bering Strait. But hey, yo, there's no comparing hate, it's all love, and you know that it's debating. Yeah, so thanks for the suggestions, thanks for having me on, and I sharpen my weapon every time I get to just do it. So thanks for coming through with the trueness.
Woo!
Incredible. Holy
Dude, that was so dope. You know what? We thought we were gonna you were gonna freestyle and then we're gonna throw something else out, but you just flowed with all of the suggestions in the chat.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was great.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for playing along, everybody.
When I moved to Boston, I was like, I probably won't be able to see some great freestyles, but you have opened my eyes, TJ. You have opened my eyes. The freestyles are everywhere. They're right in front of me.
There, yeah, it's happening.
There it is. Look, Bori Mama just said pa'lante.
Oh yeah, so talk about my installation. I'm a visual artist as well, so I have a current installation right now that's at the Freedom House and in Roxbury, and you know, it kind of reflects the history of the Freedom House and a little bit of the intersection between Blackness and Judaism. And so it's up for another couple of weeks, but there's a kind of large 8-foot light box installation that I've done down there. So. Yeah.
Very cool. We'll put that in the chat for viewers to go check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. That was really awesome. Yeah. All right.
Oh, he left so quick. That's the one thing I don't like about well, there's a lot of things I don't like about Zoom Medium, but I don't like how quick everybody leaves.
I know there's no post-show hangs in Zoom Medium. We can't just grab a drink and talk about stuff. It's so sad.
Soon enough, I guess, right?
Knock on wood. Yeah, if we get enough vaccinations out, but we'll see.
Get your shots, get your jabs. If you have it, wear your masks. Yeah. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. That was a really awesome show. Tell your friends about the show. You could also watch it on YouTube if you're not watching on YouTube already. And if there's someone that doesn't believe in a multiracial working class coalition, maybe just send them a link to this. Or if there's someone that doesn't believe that freestyles are possible in Boston, just send them the link to this and open their eyes a little bit.
Absolutely. And if you just want to just hang out and listen to us go off the rails and nerd out accidentally when we're supposed to be, well, we meaning me, is supposed to be asking questions, then
no, it's both of us. It's both of us. It's definitely both of us. But yeah, this show is every month, Sunday, second Sundays of every month, 4:30 to 6. Stop by, show up again next month. We'll have a great new topic to talk to all of you about.
We will. And you know what? Should I do this? Did I do it last month? I don't know. But send us, if you have ideas for topics or episodes, send them to us.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. So give us this all information. Give all the ideas. All right. Well, thank you so much for showing up. And
We'll see you next month.
Bye.